I never thought my life would fall apart on a Friday night. My name is Jake. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a construction manager here in Denver, Colorado. I wake up at 5 in the morning most days, spend 10 hours making sure buildings get put together right, and come home with dirt under my nails and paint on my jeans. It's hard work, but it's honest work. My grandfather taught me how to read blueprints when I was 15, and I've been in love with building things ever since. I met Claire when I was 21. She walked into this coffee shop where I was meeting a client, and she was having this intense conversation with a barista about their recycling program. She wasn't being mean or anything, but she was passionate. She believed in things. That energy pulled me in like gravity. After she got her coffee, I walked up to her and said something stupid about how she should run for mayor. She laughed. We exchanged numbers. 2 weeks later, we were officially dating. Back then, everything felt right. She was studying graphic design at the community college and doing freelance work on the side. She talked constantly about starting her own creative agency someday, about working with big brands, about changing how people saw design. I loved listening to her dreams. It made me want to work harder, save more money, build a future we could share. When her ancient laptop finally died in year 2, I helped her pick out a new one. It wasn't cheap, but seeing her face light up when she opened it made every overtime shift worth it. When she wanted to lease a small studio space for her work, I spent 3 weekends building shelves and installing proper lighting. I thought we were partners. I thought we were creating something beautiful together. But somewhere around year 4, things started feeling different. She would take hours to respond to my texts, sometimes a whole day. When I asked if she wanted to grab dinner on Friday nights, she would say she already had plans with friends, or she had a client meeting, or she was just too tired. Always something. I didn't want to be the boyfriend who complained all the time, so I kept quiet. I kept trying harder. I would show up at her studio with her favorite sushi rolls, surprise her with concert tickets to bands she mentioned liking, plan weekend trips to the mountains. But it felt like I was the only one putting in effort, like I was rowing a boat while she just sat there looking at her phone. After 5 years together, I started bringing up the idea of getting an apartment together. It seemed like the natural next step. We were both adults with real jobs. We loved each other. Why not combine our lives? But every single time I mentioned it, she would get this look on her face. Her shoulders would go tight. Her smile would disappear. She would say things like, "I don't think I'm ready for that commitment yet. I need my independence. I need to focus on building my career first." I tried to understand. I tried to be patient. But deep down, I started feeling like I was waiting for someone who would never be ready, like I was standing at a door that would never open. Then last Friday happened. She called me around 6 o'clock in the evening. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Can you come over? We need to talk." Those 5 words. Everyone knows what those 5 words mean. Nothing good ever follows them. I drove to her studio apartment with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I tried to prepare myself for whatever was coming. But how do you prepare for something like that? When I got there, she was sitting on her gray couch with her arms folded across her chest. She didn't look at me when I walked in. She just stared at the wall like there was something fascinating written there. I sat down in the chair across from her and waited. The silence stretched out so long I could hear the refrigerator humming in her tiny kitchen. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. "Jake, I can't continue this anymore." My chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart. "Can't continue what?" I asked, even though I already knew. She said, gesturing vaguely between us, "Us. I need freedom. I need to discover who I am without being attached to someone." Attached. That single word hit me like a hammer. 6 years of my life, and she called it being attached, like I was some weight dragging her down into deep water. I asked her if there was someone else. She said no. I asked if I did something wrong. She said it wasn't about me. It was about her. She needed to explore her life, meet new people, focus on her goals without worrying about someone else's feelings all the time. I sat there trying to make my brain work, trying to understand how 6 years could just end like this. I gave her everything. I worked extra shifts to help her. I was there every time she called. I celebrated her wins and held her through her losses. And now she was throwing it all away because she needed freedom. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg her to reconsider. I just stood up slowly, looked at her one last time and said, "Okay, if that's what you want." Then I walked out of her apartment, got in my truck, and drove home in complete silence. No music, no POV, just me and the sound of the engine and the weight of knowing I just lost someone I thought I would marry someday. That night, sleep was impossible. I laid in bed staring at my ceiling, replaying every conversation we ever had. Every time I asked for more and she pulled away. Every time I tried to plan our future and she changed the subject. I kept thinking maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I wanted too much. Maybe if I had been different, she would have stayed. But as the hours passed and the darkness outside my window started turning gray, I realized something that hurt worse than the breakup itself. Claire never wanted what I wanted. She never saw a future with me. Not really. I was just someone convenient, someone to pass the time with until something better came along. And that truth cut deeper than any words she said during our breakup. Saturday morning came, and I couldn't move. I called my supervisor and told him I was sick. It wasn't exactly a lie. I felt sick, sick in my heart, sick in my mind, sick of everything. I stayed on my couch in the same clothes from the night before, staring at nothing, existing in this weird space between awake and asleep. Around 9 o'clock in the morning, my doorbell rang. The sound cut through the fog in my brain. I wasn't expecting anyone. My family knew I wanted to be alone. My friends had learned not to push when I got quiet. I almost didn't answer, but the doorbell rang again and again. Whoever was out there wasn't leaving. I dragged myself off the couch, shuffled to the door, and opened it without checking the peephole. Standing on my doorstep was the absolute last person I expected to see. Victoria, Claire's mother. She stood in my doorway wearing a floral dress that looked expensive and heels that clicked against the concrete. Her red hair was pulled back perfectly, not a strand out of place. She looked like she was headed to some important business meeting, not showing up at my messy apartment on a Saturday morning. "Jake," she said, and her voice was gentle but firm. "Can I come in?" Quote. I stepped aside without saying anything. What else could I do? This was Claire's mom. I had known her for 6 years. She had invited me to countless family dinners, asked me about my work, laughed at my jokes. Turning her away felt wrong, even though my apartment looked like a disaster zone. She walked past me into my small living room. Her eyes moved across the takeout containers on my coffee table, the blanket I had been sleeping under, the general mess of someone who had given up on keeping things together. She turned to face me and I saw something in her expression I couldn't quite identify. Concern, maybe, or something else entirely. "I heard what happened," she said quietly. I nodded but didn't know what to say. What was I supposed to tell her? That her daughter just destroyed me? That I felt like an idiot for wasting 6 years? Victoria crossed her arms, but not in an angry way. More like she was holding something inside herself that wanted to escape. "Jake, I came here because I needed to speak with you, and I know the timing is terrible. I know this is probably the worst possible moment, but I had to say this before I lost my nerve." My stomach tightened. I had no idea where this conversation was going. "Okay," I said, and my voice came out rough and scratchy. She looked directly at me, her eyes steady and serious. "You're mine now." I stared at her, completely certain I had misheard. "What?" Quote, "I know how that sounds," she said quickly, like she had practiced this speech. "I know it seems crazy. I know you just ended things with my daughter less than 24 hours ago. But Jake, I've been thinking about this for years, actual years, and I can't keep it inside anymore." My brain was racing, trying to catch up with what was happening. "You want to? What exactly are you saying?" Quote. She moved closer, her expensive perfume filling the space between us. "I'm saying I've watched you for 6 years. I've seen how you treated Claire, how patient you were with her moods, how hard you tried even when she didn't notice, how much you gave her even when she didn't appreciate it. And honestly, Jake, it's criminal that she let you go. You're a good man, a really genuinely good man. And she made the biggest mistake of her life. I felt dizzy. This was Claire's mother, the woman who used to make pasta for family dinners, the woman who sent me a birthday card every year. And now she was standing in my apartment saying things that made no sense. "Victoria, I just broke up with your daughter," I said slowly. "Doesn't this feel completely inappropriate to you?" Quote. She shook her head. "I've been divorced for 4 years, Jake. 4 years of being alone. I know exactly what it feels like to be in a relationship where you're not valued, where you give everything and get nothing in return. My ex-husband treated me like furniture, like I was just part of the house that he could ignore. For 25 years, I put up with that. And when I finally left him, I promised myself something important. I promised I would never ignore real feelings again. Never pretend something doesn't matter when it does." She paused and her voice got softer. "And what I feel when I'm around you, Jake, that's real. That's more real than anything I felt in my entire marriage." I stood there frozen, trying to organize my thoughts. Victoria wasn't like Claire. She was older, obviously, 53 to my 27. But she had always been kind to me, easy to talk to during family gatherings. She was the one who asked actual questions about my projects, who remembered details from previous conversations, who made me feel welcome when Claire's father barely acknowledged my existence. But this was something from another universe entirely. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "You don't have to say anything right now," Victoria replied. "I just wanted to be honest with you. I'm not trying to take advantage of you when you're vulnerable. I'm not trying to catch you at a weak moment. I felt this way for a long time. I just never said anything because you were with Claire, and I would never cross that line. Never. But now things are different, and life is too precious to pretend I don't feel what I feel." I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't pushing me. She wasn't demanding anything. She was just being honest in a way that Claire never was. For 6 years, Claire made me feel like wanting commitment was asking too much, like wanting a future or just basic respect meant I was being needy. But here was Victoria standing in my apartment, telling me she saw value in me, telling me I was worth something. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this now?" Quote, "Because I'm tired of watching good people get overlooked," she said simply. "Because I've wasted enough of my own life pretending things don't matter when they do. Because you deserve to know that someone sees you, really sees you. Not as a convenience or a temporary distraction, but as someone worth choosing." She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. She flipped it over, and I saw a phone number written on the back in neat handwriting. "You already have this from family events," she said with a small smile. "But I'm giving it to you again just in case you want to use it differently now." She placed the card on my kitchen counter, then walked toward the door. She stopped with her hand on the doorknob and turned back one more time. "Take care of yourself, Jake. You deserve better than what you've been getting. You deserve someone who knows your worth." Then she left, and I stood there in the silence of my apartment, holding that business card, my mind spinning with 1,000 different thoughts. The next few days felt like they didn't really belong to me. I moved through them in a haze, going through the motions but never really feeling present. I couldn't stop thinking about what Victoria had said. Her words kept playing in my head, looping over and over like a broken record. "You're mine now." Those words sounded like they were meant for someone else, but somehow they also felt like the answer to a question I didn't even know I'd been asking. I kept staring at the business card she left me, that small square of paper with her number written neatly on the back. It sat on my kitchen counter, a simple thing, but it carried the weight of an entire lifetime of decisions. I didn't know if I was ready to make another decision. I didn't know if I was ready for the drama, the complications, or the judgment that would come with it. But part of me also knew that if I didn't call, I'd never be able to stop wondering what might have been. I picked up the phone and dialed her number before I could talk myself out of it. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Jake?" she said, her voice soft but clear. "Is everything okay?" Quote. I stopped myself, unsure what to say. "I've been thinking about what you said, Victoria, a lot." "Okay," she replied. I could hear the smile in her voice, though it was small, cautious. "What are you thinking?" Quote. I started, my voice low and steady. I think maybe I'm ready to see where this goes. There was a pause, and then she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. You mean that? Quote. Yeah, I said, I do. The relief I heard in her breath made me feel like I'd been holding my own breath for days. We talked for another hour, going over the past few days, the things we were both feeling, the confusion, the possibility. By the time we hung up, I felt lighter, like I had made a decision that was at least mine to make. The next morning, I picked up my phone again and texted her, "Dinner this week?" Her reply came almost instantly. "I'd love that. How about Tuesday?" I smiled at the phone, a genuine smile that reached my eyes for the first time in days. Tuesday came quickly, and I found myself pacing in my apartment, unsure of what to expect. I had gone over every possible scenario in my head. What if this was a mistake? What if I wasn't ready to be with her? What if people found out? The doubts crept in, but they didn't stick. Because for the first time in a long time, I was doing something for me. Not for Claire, not for anyone else, just for me. I arrived at the restaurant a little early, nerves running through me in waves. The place was cozy, dimly lit, with candles flickering on every table. It was a quiet spot, the kind of place where you could actually have a conversation without shouting over loud music. When Victoria walked in, everything else seemed to fade into the background. She wore a burgundy dress that hugged her curves in a way that made her look completely different from the woman I had known. She wasn't just Claire's mom anymore. She was someone new, someone I was meeting for the first time. "Hi," she said softly, sitting across from me. Her smile was warm, but there was something in her eyes, something that made my chest tighten with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. "Hi," I said, my voice rough from the emotions I hadn't realized I was holding back. We spent the first few minutes talking about safe things, the weather, our work, the traffic. But the silence between those words was filled with unspoken things. There was an electric charge in the air, and I could feel it. It wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was a chance. A chance to start something that had been years in the making, and neither of us could ignore it. After a while, Victoria set down her wine glass and looked at me with a serious expression. "Jake, before we go any further, I need to say something." I put my fork down and met her gaze. "What's that?" Quote. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, her eyes searching mine. "I know this is unconventional. I know people will talk. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I meant every word I said to you at your apartment. I think you're incredible, and I'm done pretending I don't feel that way." My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't believe she was saying this. After everything, after all the history between us and the layers of doubt that had been built over time, she was standing here, admitting what I had been too afraid to say. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. I didn't know what to say, but she kept going. "I know it's complicated," she continued, her voice soft but firm. "But I don't want to keep pretending I don't see you. You're important to me, Jake. You matter. And I think we deserve to see where this goes." There was no turning back now, no more hesitation, no more questions. I felt something shift in my chest, and for the first time in days, I felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. The weeks that followed were a blur of new beginnings. Victoria and I spent more time together, but we kept it quiet. We didn't tell anyone at first. There was a strange comfort in our secrecy, an intimacy that felt real because it was just the two of us navigating it. We would meet for coffee early in the morning before work, or sometimes have lunch in the park, just sitting together talking about everything and nothing. It was in those quiet moments that I began to realize just how different Victoria was from Claire. It wasn't just the fact that Victoria treated me with respect, though that alone would have been enough. It was the way she saw me. She saw me, really saw me, not as a temporary fix, not as someone to fill a space in her life until something better came along, but as someone who mattered. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to her. When I talked about my work, my dreams, my frustrations, she listened. She didn't look at her phone every few seconds. She didn't brush me off or change the subject. When I said I was tired after a long day, she didn't make me feel weak for wanting a moment of peace. With her, I didn't feel like I was asking too much, but there were moments when I felt unsure. Moments when doubt would creep in, like a shadow just beyond the light. I would catch myself wondering if I was using Victoria to fill the hole that Claire left, wondering if I was just running from the pain, or if this was something real. It was hard to shake the feeling that something was going to go wrong, that maybe this was just a rebound, something that would fizzle out once the novelty wore off. Victoria was older than me, she had a history, I had a future. Could we really make it work? Was I just clinging to the first person who made me feel seen after so long? One night, while we were sitting on her couch, the weight of it all hit me. We were watching a movie, and she had her head resting on my shoulder. It felt so natural, so right. But a voice in the back of my mind kept asking, "What happens next?" Victoria shifted slightly, looking up at me. "Jake, I need to ask you something," she said, her voice soft. My heart skipped a beat. "Sure, what's up?" Quote. She took a deep breath. "Are you with me because you want to be with me? Or are you with me because you're still hung up on Claire? Because, if I'm being honest, I've been wondering if this is all just a way for you to heal." I froze, the air around me suddenly thick with tension. I hadn't expected this question, but I knew she had to ask it. She had every right to. "I'm not with you to get over Claire," I said, my voice steady, though my mind was racing. "I'm with you because I want to be with you. I want this. You. Everything about you. I didn't expect this to happen, but it did. I didn't plan for it. I wasn't trying to fill a void. I swear to you, Victoria." She studied me for a long moment, her gaze piercing, like she was searching for any sign of doubt. But she didn't find it. After a pause, she nodded, her eyes softening. "I believe you," she said quietly. "But you need to be sure, Jake, because I'm not going to let you use me as some sort of band-aid for your broken heart, and I can't keep pretending I don't feel what I feel either." "I'm sure," I said, the words coming out with more certainty than I felt. "I'm not using you. I'm not running from anything. I'm here with you because this feels real, and I want it to be real." Victoria smiled, and the tension that had been hanging in the air lifted. It was a smile that said everything without saying a word. And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about healing from a broken heart anymore. This was about building something together, about letting go of the past and stepping forward into something new, something neither of us had expected. The following week, we went to a gallery opening for one of Victoria's clients. It was in a renovated warehouse in the Arts District, full of colorful, abstract paintings that I didn't understand but pretended to appreciate. I had no intention of making a big public announcement about us, but I couldn't ignore the way people stared at us. There was no denying the tension in the air when we walked in, holding hands. Victoria seemed unfazed by the looks we got, but I couldn't help feeling exposed. I wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially not with someone like her. But it felt different, somehow. This wasn't just about being seen together in public. It was about stepping out of the shadows of the past and into the light of something new. As we moved through the gallery, I saw the questions in people's eyes, some curious, some judgmental, but what mattered most was the way Victoria squeezed my hand every time I looked at her. She wasn't worried about the judgment. She was right there, with me, every step of the way. Later, as we stood in front of a massive painting of a Colorado mountain landscape, she turned to me with a smile. "This is real, Jake," she said. "And no matter what anyone thinks, I'm glad it's with you." I smiled back, my chest feeling lighter than it had in years. "Me too," I said. "Me too." Quote, as time went on, things between Victoria and me started to feel more natural, more settled. There were still those moments of doubt, whispers of uncertainty that crept in when I least expected them. Was I making the right choice? Was I rushing into something because I was afraid to be alone? But with each passing day, those doubts faded into the background as our connection deepened. We began to share more parts of ourselves that we'd kept hidden from others. For Victoria, that meant talking about her failed marriage, about the years she spent feeling invisible and unimportant. For me, it meant finally confronting the pain of my past with Claire, the quiet moments where I felt like I was always asking for too much, always wanting more than what she was willing to give. With Victoria, I never felt like I was asking for too much. I never felt like I had to apologize for my emotions, for my needs, for my desire to build a future with someone. But the real test came when things started to get serious, Victoria had been showing signs of pulling back a little. Nothing obvious, just small things. She'd be quieter during dinner, less affectionate in public, and sometimes I'd catch her lost in thought, staring off into space like she was trying to figure something out. It scared me. I couldn't help but feel like I was about to lose her the way I'd lost Claire. One evening, after dinner at her place, we were sitting on the couch, both of us a little tense. I tried to ignore the discomfort in the air, but it was impossible. My mind kept going back to those small moments when she seemed distant, when she wasn't quite herself. "Victoria," I said, my voice hesitant. "Is everything okay?" Quote, she looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and something else I couldn't quite place. "Jake," she started, her voice soft. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately. About everything." I felt my heart drop. "What do you mean?" Quote, "I don't want you to get the wrong idea," she said quickly, "but I'm scared. I'm scared that we're moving too fast. I'm scared that we're doing this because we're both still healing from our pasts, and that maybe it's not what we really need." Quote, I took a deep breath. "Is that what you think?" I asked. "That this is just about healing? That it's not real?" Quote, she didn't answer right away, but when she did, it was in a whisper. "I think it's real, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for it. I'm not sure if I'm ready for what it means to be with you in the way you deserve." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Victoria, I've never asked you to be someone you're not. But what we have, what I feel with you, it's more than just a rebound. It's more than just filling a space in my life. You're not just a comfort for me. You're someone I want to build something with." She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me, her eyes searching mine for something, maybe for the truth. Finally, she spoke, her voice shaky. "I want that too. I really do. But I'm scared. I'm scared of being hurt again. I'm scared of loving someone and not being able to give them everything they need. I'm scared of being vulnerable." I stood up, walking over to the window and looking out at the city below. "I get it," I said, my voice steady. "I'm scared too. I'm scared that this will fall apart, that I'll give everything and end up with nothing. But I can't live in fear forever. I can't keep wondering what might have been. I need to take the risk, even if it's scary." Quote, when I turned back to her, she was standing there, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jake," she whispered. "I didn't mean to pull away from you. I just don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can give you what you want." I walked over to her, gently lifting her chin so she could look me in the eyes. "You don't have to give me everything right now. We can take it slow. We can figure this out together. But you need to trust me. You need to trust that I'm here and that I'm not going anywhere." Her tears started to fall and she nodded, her voice barely audible. "I trust you. I just don't know if I can be the person you need me to be." I pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. "You already are, Victoria. You already are." The weight in my chest started to lift, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like we might actually have a chance, a real chance. Not just because we were both healing, but because we had something worth fighting for. Together. The next few weeks were a slow, quiet rebuild. It wasn't perfect. There were moments of doubt, moments when the fear crept in again. But we worked through it. I worked through it. And with every step, I realized just how much I needed her, how much I wanted this to be real, not just for the sake of healing, but because I saw a future with her. A real, tangible future. Victoria and I spent more time together, each moment deeper than the last. She was still unsure, still pulling back sometimes, but each time I felt that distance growing between us, I reached out. I showed up. I listened. I gave her the space she needed, but I didn't let her push me away completely. It wasn't easy, but I knew that we both needed time to figure this out. I took her to my brother's house for another barbecue one weekend. This time, it felt different. Marcus was still wary, but he didn't question us as much. He saw how happy I was, and that made all the difference. There were still people who didn't understand, still whispers and sideways glances. But I didn't care anymore, because Victoria wasn't just someone I was with. She was someone I saw, someone I truly saw. One afternoon, we went hiking in the mountains. The air was crisp. the sky an endless blue above us. We walked in silence for a while, just taking in the beauty of the world around us, the weight of everything that had happened slowly melting away with each step. I stopped when we reached a small clearing, the view of the valley below stretching out like something from a painting. "This is beautiful," she said, her voice full of awe as she looked around. "It is," I agreed, my eyes not on the view, but on her. I spent so much time in the past, wondering if I was making the right choices, if I was on the right path. But standing here, with you, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. She looked at me, her eyes soft and filled with something I couldn't quite place. "Jake, Before she could finish, I took her hand and squeezed it. "You don't have to say anything right now. Just know that I'm here. I'm here for you, and I'm not going anywhere." Victoria smiled at me, the kind of smile that made everything feel like it was worth it. "I know," she whispered. As the months passed, I found myself learning to live in the moment, to embrace the uncertainty that comes with building something new. We took it slow, we stumbled, we picked ourselves up, and we moved forward together. Every day, I saw more of the woman she was, the woman I wanted to be with. And then, one evening, a few months later, after a quiet dinner at her place, we sat on the couch, just holding hands. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. "Jake, there's something I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Quote, "I've been thinking about something," she said, her voice trembling. "About us. About everything we've been through." I held my breath, afraid of what she might say, but hopeful. "What are you thinking?" Quote, she took a deep breath, then looked me straight in the eyes. I'm ready to take this next step with you. I want to build this with you. I want to build a future with you, Jake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For so long, I had waited for someone to say those words to me, and now, here it was. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly, knowing that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. "I'm ready, too," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "I've always been ready." As we held each other, I realized that I didn't need to know everything about the future. I didn't need all the answers. What mattered was that we were here, together, and that we had a chance to make something beautiful out of everything we'd been through. And that was enough.